Welcome, viewers, to another tale of my life in video games in the before times. Back when the N64 was still relevant, this was one of the games that I played heavily on it, and I did remember fondly when I was a kid. Unfortunately, the game was lost in the coming decades, and I had to buy a second copy. This actually turned into a whole story in of itself, because obviously I tried to run the ROM version, but Project 64 was just having none of that. It was technically playable, but the visuals were so batshit that it looked like the horror job of what we did with that Virtual Boy game, except somehow worse off. And when I went looking for an old school cart of the game, they were selling for $15 to $20, and I wasn't having that. So congratulations, Nintendo, you finally do get some Virtual Console money from me after my first two plans fucked up since the VC version was selling for 10 bones. When I finally booted up the game on the Wii U, because remember that the Switch is having none of the ROM marketplace crap anymore for whatever reason in Nintendo's batshit mind, I was remembering more about my previous time with the game, and while it was pleasant enough of a game, it was also about as hard as a child-proof stress ball. Yoshi's Story really is one of those games that seems deliberately designed for the 6-year-old crowd, which might have been an attempt at Nintendo reaching a new audience, but I would suspect a plan like that would backfire, since the audience for this game would at least include people looking for a 3D version of Super Mario World 2 that they loved back in the SNES days, but ended up finding out that somehow the advance of the 5th generation took away from their memories of that classic title. There's making a game accessible for kids, and then there's this picture book nonsense that ends up making the game so child-friendly that you'd feel like an absolute weirdo for even picking the game up again. I appreciate the effort Nintendo put into doubling down on Yoshi's Island previous adorableness to make this stuffed animal a video game, but you guys really took it too damn far. I know, truly, that some people out there love this decision that the composers made for this game, but when I was listening to the squeaky choruses of the Yoshis singing, it was grating on my ears like actual sandpaper. It sounds like the B-movie version of a Chipmunks soundtrack. Plus, the writing of this game is so insipid that it actually makes New Super Mario Bros. Look good next to it. Sure, the game is literally set inside of a picture book for 6-year-olds, but I think we can step it up a notch from 2 sentences that say over and over again, "The Yoshis are the best, and they went on to super cool adventures to stop the evil guys from doing evil things. The best Yoshis are going to defeat all the bad people and save the world." And like with New Super Mario Bros. That will be released in 12 years after this game, Yoshi's Story shares a stupid problem from that game as well. Even with my nostalgia-tinged memories of this game, I also remembered it being pretty short for an N64 title. But not this damn short. You can complete a run of this game inside an hour and a half. New Super Mario Bros. Might have hacked off 2 total worlds for literally no reason, but Yoshi's Story took it a step further and made it so that you can play 25% of the game's content and still come out with a win under your belt. 3/4 of the game's levels are totally useless, and each run of the game only requires you to beat 6 levels. There was a design change made to address this paltry handful of gameplay, with Yoshi's Story only giving you 6 lives total to do all 6 of the game's levels back to back, and this can get pretty frickin' excruciating if you end up in a part of the game with dickhead never-ending pits of death. But the issue is that this isn't really difficulty either. Screwing over an entire run of the game due to a couple easily made mistakes is bull crap. If you want to accomplish making this game feel like it's satisfying to complete with actual challenge, then you need to build it on a difficulty curve instead of just setting fire to the whole thing because we ran out of Yoshis to play the game with. Yoshi's Story might have had some great visuals and artwork going on to put together this 3D Yoshi adventure, but it sure has a lot of problems, like the game's boss fights. Technically, this game has 5 of them throughout the levels, but for some baffling reason I can't begin to fathom, every one of them except the final Bowser Jr. fight is stuffed into the 3rd page of the game. All 4 of the page 3 levels have a different boss behind them, and I have no clue of why that's the case when every other level in the game has none. You could have just put them in at the end of every page no matter which level you went into and give us a more complete experience. But this game just seems designed just to make that player repeat the game over and over again to get all the content instead of just giving you one run through 100% of the game's levels you had done made. In spite of this, the game has no replay value. There are no collectibles, no extras to get besides 2 different Yoshis that are well hidden, and the only thing that they offer are 2 extra lives for the rest of the game, and that amounts to basically nothing. What's even stupider is that to see all of the levels in the game, or at least get access to them, you have to find all of the heart pickups throughout the game, and considering this is a Nintendo product, that's easier said than done for each page of the picture book. And what do you get after going through all of this wasted effort? One of the most pathetic Bowser boss fights imaginable. By itself, it's not the worst thing ever, just mediocre in a battle where for half of it you have to use your eggs to shoot ceiling spikes down onto Bowser while he fails to attack you amazingly, since his attacks track to where you were standing 7 seconds ago, and the minions he summons are dispatched as easily as hitting one button. But the thing that ultimately kills it is that the arena of the final boss contains the Happy Tree, which pumps out an infinite number of healing items. It's just like the Cloud boss that's in Yoshi's story, that heals you every time you damage it, and can be beaten in 15 seconds. What's the goddamn point of this thing? Someone had to be sitting there doing the character arc and attack coding and could see that this was as boring as hell. There's no point to being there, and ultimately that's what Yoshi's story is as a game. A total waste of time. There's no point in even playing the levels of the game, which is usually the saving grace of any Mario game, is that the levels are baseline entertaining to play through. But no, there is literally no point in doing the levels of the game, because if you get to the end of the level you're playing, then it just rolls you right back to the beginning of the level, because the point of the levels in the game isn't to get to the end of them, but you are supposed to be eating fruit to fill up your fruit gauge, and you beat the level when you fill it up. You can usually do this about the halfway point of the level, and if the point of the game is to finish the level at the halfway mark, then what was even the point of doing the first half? This might be a game made specifically for kids, but how stupid is that idea? We're going to make this big level and not let you see everything, and also not finish it because there was too much fruit everywhere. Yoshi's story might have been an artistic marvel surpassing everybody in the 5th generation of consoles, but everything from there was a bizarrely bad idea that ended up just wasting the developers' time that could have been better spent on making a true 3D follow-up to Super Mario World 2 that we never got. Instead, we get this game of 20 to 25 levels, of which you only have to play 6 of them to win, that you can only access through Nintendo-style collectibles, and within those levels you don't even have to reach the halfway mark to beat them, because the entire point of the game is collecting through healing items to progress. The only thing that continues to confuse me is why people like this game when it's a shell of what it could be. Yes, the style of the game is adorable in 3D rendering and the soundtrack's nice. Hell, I remember one level that had this rap or dark music playing that was just dripping in 90s nonsense, but all of that is excellent window dressing to a game that doesn't have any challenge to it and isn't even remotely satisfying to complete. Something that you can manage inside of an hour if you don't care about hitting all the levels that, in all honesty, should have just been included on the main pass so that the player could have completed all of the 20 levels that the game had. Otherwise, you end up with this game that cuts so much of its own content that you start wondering why Nintendo developed it in the first place. Yoshi's story was a failed experiment that not even the nostalgia glasses can make look better. So without further ado, let's conclude with a storybook scoreboard. And wish you all a happy-go-lucky victory for gamers ending. Join us next week when we look at a Not This Game.